Hey, Courage class, so excited for you to hear this conversation today. John Wang is a leadership coach, motivational speaker, and host of the Big Asian Energy Show, helping Asian professionals break through the invisible barriers that keep them overlooked at work. After realizing that so many talented, high-achieving Asians were being passed over, not because of lack of skill, but because of cultural miscommunication and workplace stereotyping, he set out to change that narrative. His research challenges the tired advice to just speak up more or just be a little bit louder, and instead offers science-backed, culturally grounded strategies to build confidence and visibility. He's been featured on NBC News, CNBC, The Wall Street Journal, and TEDx. He coaches leaders at companies like Google, Meta, and Goldman Sachs, and his content has reached over 25 million views. And his mission is to help a new generation of leaders lead boldly, without shrinking, assimilating, or apologizing. Let's get into it. Hey, John, I am so excited to have this conversation. It is no secret that I am a huge fan of Big Asian Energy.
I'm so excited to be here, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, the pleasure is all ours. I want to start off, though, John, speaking directly to the listener. For the listener who really doubts their leadership potential, if they listen to everything you're about to teach us, what transformation is possible through your work?
I don't like to call it my work because truthfully, the work is shared by all of us. And what I mean by that is that the transformation is not about learning something that I'm here to teach. There's no top down. Really, the real work, Lindsay, I've always learned is it's about unlearning. And it's about unlearning the things that we may have picked up in our childhood, in our culture, in our upbringing, that may have at some point taught us that the right way to belong is to shrink or to fit in by being something that maybe isn't the most authentic to us.
Yes.
And this might have been a cultural learning, or it might have been something we picked up along the way. But I think that the real transformation is how can we be our truest self? Because our truest self, I've learned, is always the most confident, most compassionate, and the most powerful in our leadership.
Yes. No, I love that. You said the word authenticity, being our true self. We spend a lot of time on Courage class talking about authenticity, being more aligned with your purpose. And I know that Big Asian Energy is a leadership book through and through. It's an incredible book. And what I shared with you in our first conversation, I almost felt as though it was calling us to live authentically and to be proud of both our Asian side and our Western side. John, I want to talk about, you've coached so many Asian professionals. I'm curious to know from you, what's the biggest shift that you have seen when someone realizes that their cultural upbringing isn't a barrier, but that it's a strength?
I think that in a corporate environment, one of the biggest things that studies have shown, because there's been actually quite a lot of research on this, and some of them I presented in the book, but one of the biggest things we see is how common it is for Asian Americans to hide elements of their cultural identity, either in the recruitment process or at work. And this might be anything, like even mentioning their own background, things that they do on weekends, the way that they show up, the way that they communicate. But at the core of it, there's this expectation where it's like, I feel like oftentimes we're brought up with this, like, okay, if you're going to work in an environment where maybe the norm is more westernized, then whatever you're bringing from your own background is something we had to hide away. And we actually saw this, that there are, I think about 1/3 of Asian Americans who feel like there's this pressure in the way that they communicate, that they have to step more, they have to be more loud. They have to be, more aggressive, perhaps, in the way that they communicate. And I think that instead of seeing this as we have to kind of shrink to fit into their expectations, because we oftentimes run into that model minority expectation, is that actually it's more about us being more okay with letting that part of ourselves be seen so that they can acclimatize to it. So I always like to say it is not assimilation, it is integration that we're seeking for.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about that, about integration? Like, what is that process?
Yeah, assimilation is that
Yeah.
there's this idea of a dominant culture.
Hmm.
And if you see the dominant culture, there's kind of a way of communication. And
Yes.
most of the time, if we're being fully honest, it's built off of Western, as in white,
Yes.
male leadership styles, as
Yes.
in the louder person, is usually more seen as being more trustworthy,
Mm.
right? And I always love to give the comparison of like Elon Musk versus like Jensen Huang, because if you see Jensen communicate
Yeah.
oftentimes, he's very humble.
Yeah.
He does not self-promote all the time. He is not aggressive in his communication. He's communicated, he's very harmonious in his communication. And yet he leads literally right now, I think one
One
of
of
the
the
biggest
biggest.
companies,
Yeah.
if not the
Absolutely.
biggest soon, if not there
Yeah.
yet, right?
Yeah.
So what we're seeing more and more of is the validation that leadership can look different
Yeah.
than what it is that we've seen previously working. And just because this is how it's worked before doesn't mean that it's the only way that it is.
Mm.
And this is the difference of what if we were to push this idea that quiet leadership is equally as powerful and equally as persuasive
Yes.
as, or maybe, harmonious leadership as, aggressive leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say equally as powerful, the quiet archetype of leadership, I think that that's really exciting because it just broadens the opportunity for people to, in your work, to bring their truest self to the table.
Hmm.
That gives us that
Hmm.
gives us a wonderful opportunity. Now, John, we know you, of course, as the leader, an executive leadership coach. You have over 25 million views on in social media alone, which I don't even understand how that. I mean, that's incredible, right? You've written Big Asian Energy. By the way, Amazon just named it as one of the best books of 2025. You are clearly a confident, you have a presence about you. Was there ever a time where you felt invisible, or has this sort of always been the way that you have operated in this confident way?
Oh gosh, no. Oh my gosh. I was a super shy kid.
Really?
I was 100%. Yeah. Oh, I was a
I
wall. I
can't
was a
believe that at
wallflower.
all.
I was the wallflower. I was a quiet kid. I was one of two non-white kids in my class in elementary school when I first arrived. I didn't speak English, and the only English sentence I remembered when I was for the first year that I think I was in maybe like grade 2 or grade 3 or something like that was speak English because that was what everyone would shout at me. And I
English,
really
yes.
tried. And what I learned is that sometimes when you don't speak, it was safer.
Mm, yes.
So for a long time for several years, basically, I learned that it was easier just to be the observer, to kind of sit back and like watch things happen and just hold my tongue.
Yeah.
And later on, there was a sudden wave of Asian people, immigrants who came over to North America.
Yes.
And then I was one of many Asians. But then I was looking for a new kind of belonging, which was now I didn't know how to properly connect with the recently arrived Asians.
Okay. Yeah.
So in both ways, I felt like there was a disconnection of belonging.
Mm,
And I'm going to bring this word in because I think that a lot of the questions a couple of questions that you asked before is how do we step more into our authentic leadership?
yeah.
The key word I often say is really belonging. Where does confidence come from? People think that confidence is a natural skill that we're just like born with. It's a
Hmm.
personality trait.
Hmm.
But the truth is that you could see somebody who could be very, very shy and introverted in one context, and that might be in a social situation or at work. But then when they're with their friends, they're in a completely different personality.
So true. Yeah.
And I always use this as an example because I had a friend who was a business partner of mine, and we would go to these events, and we would speak and everything like that. And he was always very shy. He was very polite. He was always in the backdrop. And then afterwards, we go to a restaurant or we go to karaoke.
Yeah.
And man, you got to watch him on karaoke. He just comes. He's got that big Asian energy. And
Amazing.
why?
Yeah.
Because belonging. So
Mm,
I think the difference between where we shine into that big, powerful,
yeah.
confident self that you see me now is
Hmm.
now I assume belonging.
You
As in,
assume
I assume
belonging.
that, look, what I'm going to say or how I'm going to show up, I'm going to try to be authentic to me as possible. And if I make a mistake, it doesn't take away or diminish my value, worth, or belonging, because I get to decide whether or not I belong in a room, not them.
Wow. Okay, hang on. How do you even get to that place of it's like ownership?
Well, the truth is that belonging is not something that can be granted, right? Like we're
Mm,
invited to these spaces. And I'll give you a tangible example because
yeah.
a couple of days ago I was actually talking to a client. He works at Amazon and he works actually quite high up with these like very high up like C-level people
Okay.
in one of the most, I would say, successful biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
And one thing that he was reflecting on was that, like, when he goes in these rooms, there's a part of him that has what I call proving energy, where he is like, he's always trying to prove
Ah,
something with what he's trying to say. He's trying to
yeah.
show something. Oh, look at how smart I am. Because the implicit belief is that we have to prove by how smart we are, by how hardworking we are, by how much we sacrifice that we belong.
Yes.
And I said, well, hold on a second. You're in that room. Why? Why are you in that room? And he's like, well, because, I was called there by, my director, my boss. And I was invited there because I'm an expert in this field, in this
Yeah.
particular niche. And I said, well, there you go. In the time that you're speaking, you are the most knowledgeable expert in that entire room, more so than the C level, more so than the president of that whole division. They're listening to you because they want to find out more about you. How can you not belong? As a matter of fact, in that lane, you are the person that belongs more than any of them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So think about how often we're in those rooms where we're feeling this pressure of like
Yes.
permission seeking or belonging seeking when it's like, well, if you're in the room, you already belong.
Wow.
Because how can somebody take that away from you?
That's really true because you're absolutely right. As you were sharing that story, I was thinking as you're coaching him, these are learnable skills. Why is it important to understand that these behaviors are learned and they're not necessarily innate?
That's a great question. The reason why it's important for us to recognize that they're not innate is because then we're empowered to change them.
Okay.
All communication is learned. We were not born to speak the language that we speak, and we were not born to speak it the way that we speak it. As in, we are constantly teaching ourselves and
Mm,
other people around us who we are by the boundaries we set, by what kind of communication we accept that from others.
mm,
There are times where I will be outright to people, being like, please don't talk to me like that.
yeah.
That's not how it is that I communicate. I
Yes.
can come from a humble place,
Yeah.
but I'll draw boundaries.
Yeah.
And to me, this is not about being harsh, but about being communicative of how
Mm,
best to work with me.
yes.
And your question was, how do we discover why perhaps it's important for us to
Mm,
know that these are not innate? Is because I think for many of us, we assume that because it's always been this way, therefore, this is just who I am. We see it
yeah.
as an identity.
Yeah.
And I remind them it's like just like you can go and learn a new language tomorrow, you can go and learn Japanese, you can go and learn
Yeah.
Korean, you can learn whatever new language you want. You can learn a new version of communicating how you speak now.
It really just gives us permission to cultivate skill sets. I want to transition, John, into the seven patterns because it almost feels like before I begin to learn the skills, I have to have a greater awareness of the way in which I operate. And I want to start off by reading a quote from the book. So this is page 38, and we're setting up the seven patterns, okay? So we all have patterns, and most of them are invisible to us, like mindless habits we do before realizing, except on a larger scale. Most adaptive patterns were created to help us get what we want. And I'm going to insert an ellipse and go to page 39. Not all patterns, though, are problematic. In fact, useful patterns are superpowers, like having a sixth sense. Now, I have to share with you when I went through and I read the seven patterns, at first, I was like, oh God, like going into a shame spiral. I was like, this is like a case study. Oh no, of Lindsay Kwok.
Just in case anyone's listening, I'm like, I've been there. It's like when I was writing about it, I was working with a psychologist who's also Asian American, and we kind of sat down and we took a look at what was pre-existing.
Yeah.
And essentially, I want to be clear is that these are not personality types. Like
Mm,
we can move in and out of them. They're just archetypes that show up, and we usually have one that's more dominant.
okay.
So the first one is the achiever.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you right now, by far, most people who are Asian have said that they resonate with the achiever. The achiever usually believes that they are worthy as their latest achievement.
Yes.
So oftentimes the biggest struggle they have, they constantly feel like they have to overwork in order to prove their value.
Yes.
And they believe that success is essentially a coping strategy for them feeling like they're not good enough.
So they're like never
And
satisfied. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
they're typically what we call, maladaptive perfectionists.
Mm.
And as perfectionists, it's not that they're trying to be perfect; it's that they believe that if they're not perfect, then something in their system is at risk. So they can get very all or nothing.
Mm.
Like if they're not, at the very, very top, there's this feeling of, oh, okay, well then I must be worthless. So I got to chase the next thing.
Yeah.
So there's two big things that I often see. One is the perfectionism we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is what I call the perfection treadmill. So they'll get this like they'll work really hard towards a goal. They'll get the goal and they'll imagine that they're supposed to be happy and done now.
Mm.
But instead, what happens is that they immediately go, okay, well, now I've done that. Now that's just a standard. And I always have to be above standard. So that's the achiever.
I see.
The second one is the fixer.
Yes, the fixer.
And
Yes.
the fixer I see is they're oftentimes people pleasers. They have this feeling that they have to earn their love by constantly helping other people.
Mm.
And they oftentimes are very self-sacrificial. And the biggest struggle that I often see with fixers is that they feel like anytime they receive help, they are somehow in debt. So they can't accept help,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they have to constantly be giving help.
Yeah.
And in the workplace, by the way, I had a client who called herself the workplace dumpster
Oh,
because
yeah.
oh,
I,
and I feel so bad for her when
yeah.
she described it.
Yes.
And she's like, everyone is always dumping all of their work on my desk. And I don't know how to say no because I feel guilty, because I feel like it's my job to take care of other people.
Mm.
And oftentimes a fixer at work they're usually fixers in every other part of their lives. They're fixers with their friends, they're fixers with their family.
Yeah.
They're the one carrying that
Yeah.
family.
It's
By the way,
exhausting.
if you are the eldest daughter in
Mm-hmm.
a family,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you right now, there's a really good chance that you may have had some fixer tendencies because I see that all the time.
Oh, yes.
The third one is the charmer.
Yes.
Charmers are great. They're masters of being likable.
Mm-hmm.
They're very charismatic. They're very outgoing. But the struggle that they have is that they oftentimes see their charisma as a performance.
Ah,
There's this belief that like I have to constantly be likable, friendly, outgoing, smiling, and anything that I see as being a negative emotion like anger or sadness has to be hidden away. I
I
can't
see.
let that part be seen.
Is it possible that there are qualities embedded into each of these archetypes that are good, that are helpful? Like it's good to be an achiever, yes, to some degree. It's good
Oh,
to be a fixer.
yes.
It sounds as though even a fixer is very empathic, I want to say.
All of them, of course.
Okay.
Because so the one of my favorite modalities that I've
Yeah.
studied is it's called interfamily systems.
Mm,
And we look at this concept called parts. And I love parts. And the idea is that once you become a friend to the part
yeah.
and let's if we were to take a look at these patterns, we understand that they're actually just adaptive patterns. They're ways that we have learned at some point that this is the way that I'm supposed to show up in the world to belong, to be safe, to be loved.
Yeah.
And imagine that when you're a kid, somebody hands you a script and like kind of like a movie script and says,
Yeah.
this is your role, this is who you're supposed to be. And we learn that. But all the skills that pattern had to pick up, right? Like the charmer is learning how to be good socially,
Mm,
learning how to adapt. The fixer is learning how to read other people's struggles,
yeah.
and they're amazing at it. Like when I see fixers, I'm like, wow, like they could pick up tiniest cues from the people around them
Mm,
when there's an emotional dip, when there's a struggle. They could just pick it up. It's almost like a scent in the water that they just get more than other people. And of course, so when you see achievers, they have that drive that can get them places that other people don't. When they see fixers, they have that empathy, kind of like what you're talking about,
yeah.
that allows them to connect with people on a really deep level. When you see chameleons, which are people who are almost like shapeshifters.
Yeah.
They're very good at adapting to people and
Yeah.
working with people. They're all wonderful skills, so long as they're not coming from a place of, I'm putting this on as an act.
Okay.
I'm doing it in performance.
Okay. Yeah.
But those skills are with you forever.
Yeah.
They never go away. So even if you were, a charm, let's say a fixer, and you're like, okay, I'm going to start drawing some boundaries. I'm going to stop giving myself away to everyone who asks. I'm going to start saying no.
Totally.
Great. But it doesn't take away your ability to still sense the struggles that other people are going through and your ability to connect with them.
I see.
That is still your superpower.
Yeah. And that's also where maybe the skill building comes into play, I would assume, right? It's like developing the self awareness of how it's not serving you, but then developing the skills or maybe the habits or the mindset or what have you in order to recognize and then to your point to make it a more authentic piece of you, to not put it on as like a performance.
Yeah.
And what a relief that is too, I might add. What a relief to know that I can actually turn some of all of these archetypes into something that now serves me, that helps me to be a more integrated and authentic part of who I am, as opposed to putting on the performance. Okay, thanks for indulging me in that. I had to
Yeah.
ask that as you were going through that. We were talking about the charmer. Can we go to the chameleon? You had mentioned the chameleon just now, but could we go a little bit more in depth into that?
Yeah, so the chameleon is somebody who, or it's an archetype that shows up when we're trying to fit in. I usually like to say that they could fit in at a like underground rap party as
Yes.
well as like the Met Gala. They
Okay.
have an
Yes.
ability to immediately adapt, and
Mm,
oftentimes they're very good at mirroring. That's a superpower they often have. Very
okay.
good at mirroring language, very good at mirroring, language and energy. And because they're so good at fitting in everywhere, the struggle they often find is they stop knowing who exactly they are. And they kind of check in, they're kind of like, oh, well, who is the real version of myself?
Yeah.
And then they start to lose confidence because they don't know how to show up. When they hear the word authentic, they're like, but I'm not inauthentic. I always am authentic.
Mm,
But at the same time, I also feel like I don't really know how I'm supposed to show up
yeah.
unless I know who I'm with and what they
Oh, okay.
expect of me.
Oh, okay. So like, it's almost like your value comes from, it's like you're giving your value to whoever's sitting in front of you. That's a lot of power that you're
Yeah.
giving to someone who's sitting across from you
Yeah.
as a
And
chameleon.
this is
Yeah.
this is why it is that I always say with these patterns is
Yeah.
that it's a shift from letting the pattern run you versus
Okay.
letting the pattern work with you,
Yes.
right? Because it's all the patterns are coming from our secret rules. And secret rules are, for example, is like I'll finally be good enough when I achieve X.
Mm, yes.
I'll finally be good enough when I stop disappointing people. I'll finally be good enough or I'll belong if I'm useful.
I see.
Or there's a secret rule that, oh, that hit me every time when I realized it when first time I felt myself was I was trying so hard when I was a fixer. I
Mm,
was trying so hard to tend to everyone else's needs because in the back of my head, there is a secret story that goes, as long as I'm useful, then I'm needed. And as long as I'm needed, then it's okay if I'm not wanted. And
yeah.
when I realized that was the secret rule
Yeah.
behind it, like I just started sobbing because I
Yeah.
realized I was like, oh my gosh, how did I start holding on to the story that that was who I had to be for other people to
Yeah.
earn that
Yes.
love, safety, and belonging?
Yeah.
Now that went a little deeper than the usual
No,
leadership
no,
conversation.
no. I'm so grateful that you shared that because one, that's so relatable to so many people who are listening. Everyone wants to feel belonging. Everybody wants to feel needed.
Which is a perfect segue for us to then go to the rebel,
Oh, yeah,
which is
the
the next
rebel.
one.
Yes.
Because the rebel is the opposite, at least on the
Yes.
surface, to a lot of these, right? The
Yes.
rebel pushes back. The rebel almost is like, if you tell me to go one way, I'm going to go the other way. I always like to say,
Totally.
do not, if you want a rebel to press a button, put a
Yes.
sign that says, do not press this button. That rebel will press that button. And the rebel, or I used to like to use Mira from K-pop Demon Hunters, and
Yes.
when you're seeing that movie, she is a perfect
Yes.
representation of the
Yes.
rebel, right? A lot of structure and restrictions oftentimes as part of the upbringing, and their response to it is, because I can never fit into your expectations anyway, I'm going to go exact opposite.
Yeah, I'm gonna
That's how
buck
I find
them.
belonging
Yeah,
with myself.
totally.
And then the next one is the invisible one.
Yes.
And the invisible one is the one that believes that it is quieter to stay quiet or unseen or out of the spotlight, because so long as I'm not seen, then nobody could attack me
Mm,
or nobody could judge me.
yeah. Yeah.
And that attack, by the way, when I'm saying attack, is obviously not necessarily a physical attack, but
Yeah.
maybe a criticism, maybe a judgment. And you know, we map when we were mapping these out with the psychologist. She actually, like, this was something that really hit her. We were having this deep conversation. Well, we had six at the time that was mapped out based on the studies that were around,
Hmm.
and we were like, there was something that wasn't there, because each of them were mapped against a person's what we call ACE, which is assertiveness level, competence level, and empathy level.
Mm,
There's a chart in the book that kind of dives a little bit
yes.
deeper into it. And we went, is there anyone not on this chart? And we realized, yes, the invisible one is not on the chart, because the invisible one is the one who has disavowed every part of themselves in order to be safe.
I see. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And
And that brings us to the seventh
yes,
and final one, which
the
is the commander.
commander. Yes.
The commander is the micromanager.
Hmm. Hmm.
The commander's biggest focus is, I'm going to be over responsible, I'm going to overfunction, and I'm going to make sure that everyone is in the right place and doing
Yeah.
everything that is right.
Yeah.
And then if I can control everything, then everything will be fine.
Yes.
So each of these are just different archetypes that we see us showing up in
Yes.
patterns.
I'm curious to know, as you were going through this and you were developing these seven archetypes, do you see men or women falling in any one more frequently than the other? Or is it a pretty even split, would you say?
We
Curious. Yeah.
never got to map out gender roles as part, like gender identities as part of how often they show up. I think that there were some that we saw more as like subcategories of people. So, for
Okay.
example, like we talked about, the eldest daughter. Like,
Mm.
I think this is actually a term, is the eldest
Mhm.
daughter syndrome,
Yes.
that got, that became popular, not as an actual medical syndrome.
Yes. Yes.
And that one often shows up as either the fixer or the commander,
Mm.
right? Because there were often parentified children who grew up feeling like they have to take care of everything, including their parents, especially if they were immigrant parents. So there's this feeling of like, my job is to keep everyone in place so that everyone can be safe, so that I have value.
Yes.
So there are some of these, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily gendered. These could be for anyone, really.
Okay, I see. I see. Well, I really appreciate you walking us through these seven archetypes. If you want more information, Courage Class, go to bigasianenergy.com, right,
Mhm.
to get a more robust sort of. And John, again, we're so grateful to you for walking us through that. But there is a much more robust explanation online and a significantly even more robust discussion in the book. I would love, though, to move into some listener submitted questions. Now that we're equipped with sort of understanding these different patterns, I'd love to move into some problem solving scenarios. And so we reached out to our listener community and we asked folks to submit their questions, and we came up with these specific questions. People who are sort of at different levels or points in their career. We have someone in an entry level context, and we have a couple of folks who are actually more middle managers or middle managers trying to, of course, get into leadership, or they actually are in a leadership position. So much of what you write about just speaks to so many of us, so precisely. So here's our first listener submitted question. Hey John, I want to move into a leadership role, but I recently received feedback that I do strong individual work, but I don't speak up enough in meetings, and this is very difficult. So I usually have to be called out to speak. But I prefer to hear everyone's thoughts. And if I have something I feel is of value, then I will contribute and I'll say it. But when I sense I'm about to be called upon, I get very, very nervous. So I'm worried that my own communication style will impact any consideration for a leadership role in the future. What do I do? How do I speak up, but do it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm forcing something?
Hmm. I want to first start by saying, great great add in that last part. How do I do it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm forcing something?
Yes.
Because I feel like a lot of people's expectation is, okay, I'll just fake it. I'll just
Yes.
like push it out there. I'll say something even though I don't really care about it.
Yep. Yep.
And that's not actually the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll also say that this is an extremely normal experience. So if you're listening to this, just know this is this is almost universal. I hear this so often all the time. And I want to
Ooh,
clarify something
okay.
because a lot of times I hear people say, oh, is it just because I'm shy or quiet? And I usually say, I think it's more likely that you just have high standards.
Oh,
And
okay.
and this is
Yes.
the difference, right?
Yes.
Because in Asian cultures, we are taught that when we're speaking up, especially in front of somebody who is in a higher, let's say like authority status, like a
Yeah.
teacher or a parent or an elder, our job is to listen. Our job is to not interrupt. Our job is to not jump in with our ideas unless they're so valuable that, you're like, this has got to be such a high standard for me to say it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's a perfectionistic thing, not a shyness thing, not a fearful thing. That performance anxiety that you're feeling right now is normal and has kept you safe all these years. So
Wow.
let's just take a moment and say thank you to it.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's three steps that I
Wow.
always say.
That's
The
powerful.
first step is take a moment
Yep. Yep.
and just say, "Oh, I am feeling nervous right now." And name it. It's okay to name it. It's okay to just start saying, "Oh, I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm feeling nervous right now." And then if you want to take check-in, this doesn't take very long, by the way. This is
Yeah.
something that lasts like 10 seconds. It's
Okay.
like, I wonder why. What is it that I'm afraid is going to happen? Oh, is it that people are going to judge me? Is it that the idea won't be good enough? Is it that people are going to think I'm being a burden or an inconvenience by taking up space?
Mm.
And realize that just because you hold yourself at that high standard doesn't mean that other people do as well. Most of the time, I always tell
Yeah.
people this. You
Yes.
think that your idea has to be at a 10 to be spoken,
Yeah.
they need to be at a 5. And people get very shocked. And I
I'm
say,
shocked right now, John. This is
"Bec-
powerful. No,
because it's
seriously.
true, right? Like
Yeah.
a 5 to you and your expertise and your knowledge in your domain of excellence is probably like, this is very normal stuff. This is basic stuff.
Yeah.
But to somebody else who does not have your experience,
Yep.
that might already be a 10.
God.
I constantly have to remind myself of this all the time. That's things I'm
Wow.
constantly like, how do you not? Is this not common knowledge that everyone knows this? And people are like, no, I've never heard this before. And I'm like,
I've
oh my gosh, right,
completely
of
never heard
course.
this before. I'm loving this though. Yeah. No, keep
Right?
going. Sorry.
Because
Yeah.
because this is my work. This is what I spent years doing. So as a result, I feel like it's normal. And it's the same way for whatever it is you have to share. I guarantee you that whatever you have to share at a level of 5
Hmm.
is going to contribute more value than you think is there. And here's the third thing I remind people of. People will remember when you do things well, but they generally won't remember that much of anything at all.
Mm.
That's the truth, right? We don't really remember what people say or do. We remember how they make us feel.
Oh,
So my recommendation is get into a habit, right? It's
yeah.
like a muscle. So far, imagine you're doing bicep curls, right? Like you've built this muscle of observation
Hmm.
and perfectionism over the years. You're really strong at it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to build the muscle of imperfection. Now we're
Oh,
going to
man.
build the
Yeah.
muscle of good enough.
Yes. 5 is good enough. A 5 is good
5
enough.
is good enough
Yes.
because people will find the value that they need to from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, great. Remember, 2 5 statements is still a 10.
Mm.
So even if the
Absolutely.
moment you're like, well, I don't know if this is good enough, say it anyway. Say it imperfectly. And then if later on you have another idea, just jump in and being like, hey, earlier I said this. I just had a new thought. What if we did this now? It's additive, not reductive. People won't
Yes.
think less of you.
Yes.
People will think more of you.
This is blowing my mind because I have to be really honest. When I initially read this, I was like, oh, this is all about the introverted personality. But what I'm learning from you right now, John, is that it's so important for you to be precise about even maybe it's the pattern or the whatever the thinking is, the thought is. You said that this is about perfectionism, not
Hmm.
necessarily being shy and introverted. And because I now know that it's about perfectionism, actually the action that I take next is it's critical to be able to name it correctly. And what else is blowing my mind is that a 5 is okay. It's
Your
toxic.
5 could be
Yeah.
somebody else's 9.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Your 3 could be somebody else's 9,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And there's somebody in the, you're not trying to impress everyone in the room.
Yeah.
As long as somebody in the room, it could just be one person who took something away, you've contributed something of true value.
Yeah. And you're in the room. And you said to us earlier that if you are in the room, there's a reason why that you are in the room. So to own that and to be unapologetic about that. And so I love that. Okay. Shall we move on to the next question?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So saying no in the workplace. So I think that this is about drawing boundaries, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. So hi, John. Within a few months of starting a new job, people started leaving. And as a new person, I'm asked to step in and cover, and it's starting to feel unmanageable. I'm finding all of the new responsibilities and my existing ones are taking a big toll with no end in sight. And my manager keeps telling me that they're trying to hire the team, but honestly, I'm not sure how much longer I can do this. This person goes on to say, I'm opening up my laptop, working into the night after the kids go to sleep. This is unsustainable, but I need this job and I don't want to rock the boat, but I need things to also change. What can I do to communicate my feeling of just complete burnout?
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Oh,
so
oh
sorry.
boy, I
Yeah.
felt that one.
Yeah.
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 I'm so sorry that you're going through this,
Yes.
whoever submitted this.
Yes.
And realize that I like to say this is that at the workplace, you can set boundaries or you can set policies. And there's difference.
Okay.
So a boundary is like it's like a wall, it's like a stop sign, it's like a big no.
Mm.
A policy is more like a velvet rope that goes, this is where I set my policies. So I'm going to talk about two things separately. The first one is about that time because you got kids, you need to get some sleep.
Yes.
Your mental health is the most important thing because if you go down, everything goes down, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing to let people know, I always say, is set policies of how long you're willing to work and then communicate those policies, especially through emails. I always tell people this is that after a certain amount of time, let people know, have a little autoresponder. By the way, I'm not checking my email between this time to this time so that there's a kind of general knowledge. So it's not a no, it's just that this is my policy. Now, the more important part is how do I get my manager to stop giving me more stuff that is
Yeah.
not within my range? Work with them. And what I mean by that is that one of my favorite things to say, to suggest to people is ask the manager when they give you a new task that is outside of your scope, great. Which task would you like me to deprioritize to work on this?
Oh, that's great. That's good.
And not what you're
Yes.
putting on them, right? Because you
Totally.
hired me to complete tasks. I'm going to complete tasks. And if you're giving me a new task, great. Which one would you like me to deprioritize? Which
Mm.
which which deadline do you want me to push back?
Yes.
Because of course, this is your responsibility to figure out as a manager, not my responsibility. Your job is to delegate.
Yeah.
So I always say this, and I say this as well, by the way, if somebody's listening who has a coworker who likes to dump things on their plate,
Yes.
go to the manager and say, hey, so and so came to me and wants me to work on this. I just want to check in with you. What should I deprioritize? What should I push back
Mm.
so that I can work on this?
Yes.
Now they can't come and say, well, all of it. You need to do all of it at once. Like, well, that's not reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just say, well, I'm able to thank you for your message.
Yes.
I'm able to prioritize these two to be done by this. Is that, is that going to work for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So because this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize about management. Management will get away with whatever they can get away with. And I'm not
Mm.
saying this to antagonize. What I mean by that is that they're taking a look and they're saying, hey, let's say, Nancy here, we hired her to do 5 things and now she's doing 9. They don't see it as, oh, Nancy is so hardworking. They see it as Nancy has always been able to do 9 things, but she was overcharging us for 5.
Oh
So
my
we need to
gosh.
give
Yes.
her 9 things from now on.
Yes.
And they'll take longer to hire
Wow.
because they can.
Yeah.
So we go back to them and you say, well, you don't rock the boat. You let them rock the boat.
Yeah. 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 I see what you're saying. No, this is so good, John, because what I'm hearing from you, first of all, there's so many different things. The first thing is that language is so important. And I love that you made this distinction of policies versus boundaries. I've heard from some of my Asian friends, boundaries feels like you said, it's boundaries like a wall. right?
Yeah.
And that almost feels a little and maybe I'm just projecting my own sort of Asianness into this, but it feels like that just doesn't feel as doable as a policy. And I
Mhm.
appreciate that nuance, the difference in just sort of drawing a policy. These are the times where I'm going to answer email. These are the times
Mhm.
that I'm clocking out, just an FYI. And you also just gave us permission to collaborate with our manager, someone who is in a position of authority,
Mhm.
and to do it in a respectful, yet still assertive way, and really putting the onus of decision making on them when it comes to all of the different tasks that you're supposed to complete. It feels very doable, to be totally
Mhm.
frank with you. Like, that is something I can practice saying in the mirror. If I need to, I can script it out if I need to, or I can bullet point it if I need to. But that is a conversation that I can most definitely have with someone who is
Mhm.
in a position of authority, and it still feels like it maintains that respect, that level of respect that in
Mhm.
general in the Asian community we are really taught to honor and to respect somebody who is an
Mhm.
authority. Yeah.
I'm going to add one more final
Yeah.
note to this is
Yeah.
that if you're ever going to make an exception, make it known and put it in writing. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is that let's say that your manager is coming to you and saying, "Hey, I need you to do this or work extra or whatever it is."
Yeah.
And in that moment you're kind of like, "Okay, well, it's not a big deal." You can let them know and say, "Look, I'm able to do this as an exception, but I usually don't.
Ah.
This is outside of the scope," because you can always go back to the scope. This is what, I was hired for. And the next time they do it, you can point back to, as I previously said, the last time we did this was an exception.
Mm. Okay.
It's it's up to you to find what is the level that you're comfortable with,
Okay.
because at the end of the day, when we're talking about leadership, leadership starts in the nervous system. So for some of the things that you might hear today, you might be like, "Ooh, that sounds like I can never say that." Well, that's okay. We could soften,
Mm.
but find what's right for you. Just
Yeah.
know that what's right for you is always your value,
Ah.
and never let other people take that
Yeah.
away.
Oh, thank you for saying that. No, it is. It's a very personal decision whenever you are thinking about sort of your next move at work and the way you want to communicate it, the way you want to say it. I think that that's such an important and powerful reminder. So thank you for including that, John. Okay, our final listener question. This one comes from someone who is just starting out in their workplace trajectory, or their career rather. So this person says, I just started a new job and I can tell already I am having trouble communicating with my manager. She has a communication style I'm not used to. And when I ask her a question, she's short and it feels like I'm more of a disturbance than anything. How do I get my questions answered without feeling like I'm being disrespectful? I love this person. I know this person. So I love this person.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. How does she do
Absolutely.
that? How does she do that without feeling like she's being disrespectful?
Well, the first thing is she correctly identified it's I'm feeling like I'm disrespectful, not I am being disrespectful, which is to
Okay.
say you're not being disrespectful by asking questions. This is
Ah,
literally in your job description to ask questions to do your job better.
okay.
And this is really important to keep in mind. Cultural communication styles actually vary quite a bit.
Mm.
And in the book, I talk a little bit about this as what we call high context versus low context communication. So if you go to different countries, you will see that assertiveness levels and rejection levels of communication are very different. Some, like if you go to Eastern Europe, like people are super direct to the point that if you heard them here in North America, they sound rude. Like they sound outright mean, but that's just how they communicate. That's just their
Mm.
norm.
Okay.
And then if you go to Japan, people are
Mm.
so overly polite by my standards, right? Like
Sure.
they will do whatever it takes to avoid a no. They will say anything they can to avoid saying a direct no because that's the culture. So realize that your interpretation of reality or what you're there feeling doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they're experiencing. In other
Mm.
words, a lot of times people are like, "Oh, but she's so short. Why is she mad at me?" And that's often a fear is like, are people mad at me?
Oh, yes.
And I'm always going to say, unless they tell you that they're mad at you, or that it's a once in a life, rare time where they're suddenly changing their disturbance level,
Mm.
usually that's just who they are.
Okay.
You're allowed to speak back to them the way they communicate, and you're allowed to work with them the way they communicate.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're speaking a different language.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's important is to calm that part of you that automatically feels nervous or scared or like you're doing something wrong. That's the part that needs you to pay attention and say, it's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. No one's mad at you. You're not
Yeah.
being disrespectful.
Yeah.
You're just doing your job. And how do you know that you're not doing anything wrong? Because asking questions is literally your job to do your job
Yes.
better.
Yes, yes, no, absolutely. No, I think that I so appreciate that. And I so appreciate the different communicative contexts as well. I think that that's really important to understand that that's not necessarily maybe reality, right? Like that's just like maybe your interpretation. And you're right. It
Mhm.
is so important to ask questions. That is literally your job. John, may I share just an observation with you?
Yeah, of
I have
course.
to be really honest. I tried to pick what I thought were going to be like difficult sort of questions to throw at you or to share with you, rather. And the way that I experienced your coaching just now, there was never any judgment, and there was so much grace and just so much acknowledgement in the individual, what they were experiencing, that it was normal. And you said the word this is normal. This is a normal action. This is a normal thought pattern. I cannot tell you how important it is to feel like there is no judgment around like who you are and how you are and even the patterns that are showing up. And I certainly felt that from you.
Mm.
And I'm really grateful to you for taking the time to address some of our listeners' questions, because I think that what Big Asian Energy has done, what you have done, your work. I know you say that it's collaborative and it's not necessarily you teaching. And I think that, if I may, the insights and the research and the heart that you have poured into Big Asian Energy is so important, because it's so spot on, identifies the people in our community, and the things that get in our own way as we pursue leadership positions or pursue a more authentic way of living. I want to encourage everybody to go out and get this book, because it will be such a relief to know that it's not just you, that this is something collectively that we experience. And there's so much joy and relief in knowing that this is something that we all experience, and there's a way to work with our own cultural upbringing in a way that makes our life more powerful, and more authentic.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to connect and chat about all this, because I think that really at the core of this, exactly as you say, I think the struggle that we often feel is that we're alone in it.
Yeah,
And the more that I've done this work, the more people, at this point, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people. And the truth
yeah,
is, so often we think that we're alone in things, but we're all the same. We're all the same people. We
yeah.
all have the same experiences, and we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all in this together. And on that note, may I ask you one final question?
Of course.
What is your definition of courage?
Hmm. Oh, I love this question. Let me just take a moment.
Mm,
Hmm. Courage to me is curiosity,
mm,
is the willingness to be curious of what it's like to go through something that is new and that is hard. And if we're coming from a place of curiosity, then, going into talk to our boss in a big scary discussion
yeah,
is really about being curious about, I wonder how I will feel after I come out of this.
mm,
I wonder how I'll feel after I learn about them. I wonder how I'll feel when I truly step into place and step up for myself.
yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. And really leading with curiosity, it is. It's so, embedded into curiosity is grace, I feel like. Not
Mhm.
judging yourself, and
Mhm.
asking what's going on here, in a way that encourages you to take action in not just your own leadership career, but in your own life. And so, thank you so much, John, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.